And welcome back to Lantern Corps. It's the start of the Lantern Corps and Zanpakuto again this month. Like I said at the beginning when I posted about doing the Quirk series and the Digimon Partner series, it's going to be a rotational thing. I didn't want to stop doing the Lantern Corps or Zanpakuto series, but if I wanted to do more, I knew I had to break it up per month because I just would not have been able to cram everything in there on the type of schedule I have. So anyway, this goes out from Nicholas Nix Thompson, who has asked me multiple kinds of the South Park characters, Lantern Corps. And I've done Cartman and Stan. Now we're on to Kyle. Kyle, the good old Jewish boy down the street. So what is his Lantern Corps? This, like many of the other characters, sans Cartman, falls into it became very difficult because at some point in the show, Kyle has been probably all of these Lantern Corps, minus Death, because I don't think Kyle has ever died. But apart from Death, he's probably been, probably Life too, now I think about it. But apart from those, like the Core 7 and Shame and Happiness, he was probably qualified to be any one of those at any point in the show. So it became pretty difficult to kind of pinpoint a Lantern Corps for him. I will say, though, I can probably scratch a couple ones off. One, I can scratch Happiness off. I can scratch the Gold Lanterns. This is because Kyle, as well as everyone else in South Park, has not been professionally happy his whole life. I will also scratch Greed off here. Well, he's definitely had his greedy moments. It's not a driving factor of him, despite what Cartman might tell you. Give me your shoe gold. By the way, I am quoting the show, so that's fine. Not that I want you. That's your spare. That's your decoy gold. Give me your real gold. Anyway, he's also. He's like a pretty compassionate fellow. He's not devoid of it. Like most people say, you kind of need to be almost devoid of any compassion or to be kind of a qualifier for it. But it can also be your most dominant trait, admittedly, and then it just balances you out. But yeah, it just doesn't work in the sense, at least by most standards, for Kyle. Love, he certainly had moments of feeling love, but it's not the thing that dominates his personality most of the time. Fear, he's not someone who really instills fear. Hope, he certainly carries a lot of hope with him, at least through portions of the show. I mean, he is a person of faith, being of the Jewish culture. Jewish religion, I should say. But, ultimately, when I thought about this more, I'm like, okay, there is one way for me to kind of slim these down. And that's the episode, it was not the pandemic special, but beyond the one after where they actually had the future versions of them, and then they went back to the past and all that. So with that, I looked at that future version of Kyle. I'm like, okay, what does he really exhibit here? And he exhibited kind of just two things. One, will, because Kyle over his entire life, just like a lot of them, has had to overcome fear, great fear, and has had to go through a bunch of trials, like drinking pee and all that. But yeah, so will would work. But honestly, when it's all said and done, because of everything, and I mean everything that Cartman has put him through in his life, plus some of the stupidity of his other friends and his parents acting like jackasses, Skank Hunt 47, anyone? And how he reacted to Cartman upon seeing him at their class reunion all those years later. Rage. I think Kyle is actually a pretty good candidate. Now, he's not for Rage. He's not always angry. But he harbors, honestly, even though for some reason they always hang out together, he harbors a pretty big hate boner for Cartman, and kind of rightfully so. Cartman's a terrible, terrible, terrible human being, if you could even call him that. He's racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, all that. He's a terrible person. So it makes sense that Kyle would harbor a lot of anger towards him. And when bad things happen, like when Cartman got AIDS, he rightfully laughed at him. And then Cartman gave him AIDS back. So, yeah. But yeah, and then when you look at how he reacted all those years later, he still was very much angry at the shit that Cartman did to him, around him, said about him, all of that, and did to other people. He still hated him for it. So Ultimately, yeah, I would say that weirdly enough, well, Green's probably an okay secondary option. I think Rage fits Kyle surprisingly well because I think there's a lot of anger hidden under the surface there. But that's just my opinion. What do you think of the cons below? Do you think Kyle's a Green Lantern or Red Lantern? Or could he be any one of the other 9? Let me know in the comments below. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you folks next time. Later.